Hey guys, good morning. So I'm doing this on a Sunday morning. It was a lazy Sunday morning, so I wanted to do something fun to change it up a little bit. So I'll be going through a little bit about my collection, and people call these kind of videos called state of the collection. So basically, I'm just going to showcase what I have in my current collection, and those people who know me from before, a lot has changed, but the core principle of my collecting journey, which has been to collect watches with good finishing or interesting case designs, has always remained the same. And I'm going to just run through a little bit of what I have right now. So, to start it off, this is the Rolex 1601. This is a watch that has been in my family for close to 40 years. The actual age of the watch is 51 years old. It's made in 1971. Sorry, 50 years old, 1971. But it has not been. It's not a watch that my grandfather bought new. So it was something that he got from someone else. And so I estimate the amount of time it has been in my family for about 40 years, give or take. This watch has a very interesting story that if I do tell right now, it's gonna take a long time. But basically, it's a very sentimental piece of my late grandfather, and this is something that I will never sell. It's in very good condition. Yes, it's over polished and all that, but who cares? It's a really nice piece, and it even has the original Jubilee band. I don't like the Jubilee band, so I don't put it on, but put it on this nice Himalayan crocodile strap. So very simple watch. This watch started my watch journey. It got me into automatic timepieces. I was gifted this when I was 16 years old. So very important piece for me, and arguably what started my whole watch collecting obsession. So this is the first one. And most of these watches I have today, these are all a lot of new watches. As I said, my whole collection has revamped. And I'm not going to show this in any particular order. So I'm just going to show the pieces I have in general. So this is something that I have showcased before on my Instagram. This is a Gorilla Outlaw Drift. Very nice piece. It has a washer made movement with a satellite display. You will see this kind of displays in watches like Urber. So this is a watch with a satellite complication, a wandering hours complication they call it, for a much cheaper price. I bought this because it was very well designed, and look at the finishing. When I bought this watch, I did not see the actual piece, but the important thing is that in the end, when it arrived, it's extremely well made, and I really like it a lot. I don't wear it as often because I have a lot of pieces, but when it's like summertime, well, it's always summertime in Singapore, but when it's like a trip to the beach or somewhere hot, sunny and casual, I do like to put this on. It's I wouldn't say it's very light, but it's light enough to be something that you can wear and walk around a lot. I'm going to show you a little bit about the wandering hours movement. So how it works is that you read the time. Right now it's 3:25. When the 3 progresses to 60, there is a sleight of hand at the 6 o'clock where the movement shifts it to the next upcoming number. So I think it's pretty cool, and if you actually do a time lapse on this, it's very cool. You will see this rotating really quickly. And yeah, I just like this watch. It's a beautiful watch, and I am very excited to see what's going to come from Gorilla in this case shape. I believe that more pieces are coming out soon. So next one is the SBGR 309. So this is a Grand Seiko GMT in a heritage case. I bought this because I wanted a beater watch. I wanted something that I can travel around with, and just beat around, carry without being too scared about getting robbed or snatched. It's not a cheap watch, but in terms of relativity, I won't be so hurt or so angry if I was really robbed. I would still be angry for sure, of course, but this is something that I'm quite okay to bring overseas, and I just carry around and not too care too much about it. This watch has a beautiful case. The Heritage case is one of my favorites, if not my favorite in the GS line. It's a little bit chunkier than other cases, but for me it's the perfect case. It shows off so many facets of the Grand Seiko and their Zaratsu polishing, and not all of their cases do that. Look at the number of facets it has. Incredible finishing. The watch is extremely well made, right? You have a very nice solid bracelet with polished sights on the center links and even a bevel on the outer links. The movement, needless to say, is up to Grand Seiko standard. Beautifully made, beautifully crafted. The bracelet's kind of in the way, but there you go. Just a normal workhorse movement, high beat. So it's a high beat, 36,000 vibrations per hour. So beautiful movement, and look at that crest. Amazing. Yeah, so this is just my beater, carry around, go overseas kind of watch. Next one is a relatively inexpensive one. This is a Seiko 62 MAS reissue. Sorry, I can't remember the exact code for this watch because there are a few variations. I think it's SBDC053 if I'm not wrong, but I may be wrong in this. So this watch I got on a whim. It's below $1,000. The bezel is I believe it's aluminium, but I really like the color of the bezel, and also the kind of sunburst blue on the dial. Right now you can't really see the blue, but in the sunlight you can see a very nice radial blue pattern and very strong luminescence. So this is a definition of a beater watch, right? You can bring this anywhere, you go into the sea, go to the beach, go overseas, and you know, it won't be a problem. It's an incredible piece. I didn't knock that down apparently, but 200 meters water resistant, much more than what you need. Workhorse movement, you know, it's a pro specs Seiko. Nothing too much to fuss about it. The bezel action is also amazing. Honestly, Seiko makes some of the best watches in the world at a low price points. You could actually compare this to watches in the $5,000 range and find that it's in terms of build quality, it may be on par, if not better than some. So this is the kind of value proposition that Seiko is trying to bring over here, and never regretted this purchase. My mom actually dropped this watch on my wooden floor, and it actually dented my wooden floor, and there is virtually no dent on the watch itself. The steel used here is very, very strong. So yeah, this is a very nice watch. Okay, so now we go into some of the heavier pieces, right? One of my recent acquisitions is this Credor Eishi2. So the Eishi means wisdom, and Credor is basically the top of the line Seiko made watch. So they don't call it Seiko, they call it Credor, and it's made by the micro artist studio in Seiko that consists of about 10 people only. And these 10 people dedicate their lives and passion towards watchmaking and art and crafts, and the result of that is this beautiful watch. I bought this watch in the secondary market because frankly speaking, I cannot afford the retail price on this, so I found one on a very good deal, and I contemplated for close to a year, and finally the buyer was willing to sell me at the price I wanted after keeping in contact for about a year, and I'm so glad I got this piece. It's a beautiful piece. It's a porcelain dial, and every single wording on this dial is actually painted by hand. You have the Credor logo painted by hand, you have the markers painted by hand, and you even have the small script below that says Japan and the movement number painted by hand. And that is, frankly speaking, crazy. You have no idea how much time this person has to spend in terms of training to make this dial. And not to mention that this is a porcelain dial, and from what I've heard is that one dial takes 64 attempts on average to get one that is pure white. And I can't macro right now, but if I take a macro shot of the dial, there's actually a very porous, uneven surface. You can't really see it from afar, but when you really go down in 10 times loop magnification, you can see that this is a natural material, a natural porcelain material, which is beautifully done, right? And you can see that fired blue hands just executed to the highest level. And look at that movement. The highlight of this watch is really the movement, right? In terms of the overall watch, every single part is made with care and utmost dedication to the craft. But look at that movement. This movement is something that I can say represents the highest of traditional watchmaking. Yes, there aren't many interior angles. It's not very extravagant compared to some high-end Swiss pieces with 10 interior angles. But well, even though there's a lack of traditional curved interior angles, there are actually many interior angles to be seen on this Shiojiri bellflower motif that is skeletonized by hand and then subsequently beveled and polished in every single facet in all the edges. The bevels on these are also extremely wide. What do I mean by wide is that these bevels are actually polished with a gentian piece of wood and polished paste by hand painstakingly throughout the entire circumference of the plate, and every single part is left untouched. Wide bevels also mean that this can only be hand done and it's not machine done, because the bevels on these are 2 to 3 times wider than most high-end Swiss brands, and that is just a work of art. At this price range, you're really looking at details, and every single countersink is also polished perfectly. And if you take some other German or Swiss brands and compare the polishing on the countersinks, you would find that the AUC 2 easily surpasses every single one of them. And this watch is a representation of Seiko's or Creedor's dedication to making the finest timepieces in the world. This is also made in platinum, 950 platinum, and it's a heavy watch. And platinum exudes a bright white brilliance unlike any other metal, and it's hard to actually appreciate this in a video. You gotta hold this in person and really look at it. It is an amazing watch. So the next watch I'm going to show you is actually also a recent purchase. Actually, most of my watches are recent purchases. So this is a Breguet 7067BR. Now, Breguet is a very old brand, and the company is associated with many first developments, such as Abraham Louis Breguet actually created the tourbillon. So, you know, it's a company that has a rich history. And why I bought this watch is because I wanted to get into Breguet, and I was considering a few pieces like the classic Breguet that's not skeletonized, but really what captured my attention is the complexity in this La Tradition watch. So the watch is completely open-faced, and you can see how the power is delivered from the mainspring all the way and affecting the oscillation wheel, and how the time is being transferred and regulated over here. And the watch is just executed beautifully in a very traditional Breguet kind of styling. You have the coin edge over here that is cold rolled. This is extremely hard to do, and actually if you ever dent the surface on this, you have to actually send it back all the way to Switzerland to correct it. I think that would cost you a pretty penny, so I'm pretty careful with this piece. This is made in 18 karat white gold, and it also shows a lot of very nice finishing in the gear. You can't compare this to the Creedor AHG2, but there are evidences of hand finishing throughout the gears. The plates are actually beveled and polished as well. You have a hand guilloche dial, which how they create this dial is that they use a rose lathe machine that is centuries old, and basically they carved this solid 18 karat gold dial out from a blank, and that is one of the highlights of Breguet watches in them showcasing their guilloche patterns. Very, very nicely executed and very artistic and traditional. Right, and look at the finishing on the back. It looks very unextravagant because it has been sandblasted. So there is this form of mutedness to the watch. So you don't see a very extravagant level of finishing, but if you peel closer, it is actually well done. You can see all the gears are also finished very nicely. And this Breguet logo, I previously, in my previous video, I actually mentioned that it might be a machine made, but I went to check it out and actually it's actually hand engraved. The Breguet logo is actually hand engraved, which is a very, very nice touch. So overall, this is a GMT watch. The GMT pushers over here, beautiful execution, and yeah, nothing to complain. I love this watch. It's for those days where, you know, I'm tired of wearing simple watches, and even though mechanically this is pretty simple, the execution is rather complicated. Now, my next purchase. So this watch is a very special watch to me. This is a MBNF, and how I got to acquire this watch was actually through a Philips auction done in now it's June. I think it was in early June. And why this is special to me is because the brand MBNF was the first brand that really got me into independent watches. Before that, I was collecting a lot of mainstream watches like Patek, Lange, Rolex, and all that. And when I got my Legacy Machine 101, that was the first watch where I saw and I felt that, hey, you know what? Independent watches are really undervalued for what they are. They exude creativity, finishing beyond any mainstream brands. You know, the ability to customize, their creativity, and that's when I realized that, hey, you know, I really want to collect independent watches as much as I can. And although I sold my Legacy Machine 101 last year, it was a watch that I regretted selling by any measure, and the prices have gone up so much that I can't possibly think of getting another one again. But it is a beautiful watch, and it changed my perspective about independence entirely. And so when I discovered MBNF, this was way before I got my Legacy Machine, and I always thought that, you know, the horological machines are the ones that I really want to keep, because the horological machines are made using what Max says, his gut. You know, it's something that he takes a chance on. You know, it's not by any means a circular shape. You know, if you look at the other HMs, they come in many, many different shapes, and I wanted to own that piece of creativity from MBNF, and this is the horological machine number 2. So a little bit about this watch. The horological machine number 2 is the second watch that MBNF has created. There's the number 1, number 2, and then subsequently it was overtaken by Legacy Machines and other HMs. And in this watch, what you see over here is a space platform-like structure made in ceramic and titanium, and it houses 4 complications. Over here on the left, you have a bi-hemispheric moon phase. So it shows you the moon phase on the northern and southern hemisphere. And you have a retrograde date. The retrograde date means that when this date progresses to 31, on the next day, this marker actually flies back to 1. So that is called a retrograde function. And on the right over here, you have a jumping hour mechanism. That means every hour, the hour jumps, and the minute is a retrograde minute. So similar to how the date works, as the minute progresses to 60, it will jump back to 0, and the hour jumps simultaneously. This is a very complicated movement to make, and MBNF executed this very well. The case, however, is the highlight of the show, I believe. The case itself has more than 100 components, and I think that this is just unorthodox by any measure. Not many people will like this. Is either you like it or hate it, but I love it because it's so out of this world, and honestly, every time you carry this on your wrist, and people that don't really know about the brand, they will always ask, what is this brand, you know, where do you get this from, why does it look like this, you know. Some people hate it, some people love it, I love it, and I don't really care what other people think. So it's a beautiful watch, and look at that movement. This movement is a Gerard Parago based movement, and modified by MB&F, and it houses the modified rose gold, 22 karat rose gold Battle X rotor. So the rotor spins extremely freely on ceramic ball bearings. Look at that. Now, this is one of the hallmarks of MB&F, and this piece is made to a limited edition number of 66 pieces, so you don't really see this around much. Overall, very beautiful piece. One of my favorite pieces in my collection, and very, very nice from MB&F. Finally, the last one. This is a recent acquisition that I have not announced yet. So this is a IWC 315703. Sorry if I got that number wrong. I'm still new to the references for IWC, and this is a grand complication. My first grand complication, and this is executed in full platinum case. So this case is very, very heavy. It's made with a kind of grayish tone dial with markers and tritium plots all over. This also has a German dial. This actually came in, I think, 4 iterations: French, English, Italian, and German. So this one has a German dial, which is I think the most apt dial for this piece, because the brand has origins in Germany. So this is also limited to 500 pieces. So a very rare watch. You don't see this around much, to be honest. And I was very lucky because my friend wanted to sell some of his pieces, and this was one that he wanted to let go. I immediately jumped on it as soon as we came to a deal. But this is a perpetual calendar chronograph. So what is a perpetual calendar? A perpetual calendar is something that tracks time for every single month, moon phase, date, day, time, year, every single, and leap year. So this watch is basically a mechanical handphone that never gets the date wrong, right? So this is a beautiful piece, and furthermore, this is not just a perpetual calendar. It's actually a split-second chronograph. Now, what do I mean? As I actuate the chronograph pusher, you see the blue hand starting to traverse across the dial. And for a split-second chronograph, there is a second hand that is actually hidden below the blue hand. And when I click this split button, the red hand actually splits up. And this is for timing lapse. You don't use this much in real life, seriously, but a split-second chronograph is a very, very complicated mechanism paired with a perpetual calendar that makes for a very, very, very complex movement from IWC. And once I click this split, it goes back, stop, reset. It's one of those watches. It's the first watch that after my Rolex 1601 without well, it's not the first, it's probably the third, because my Seiko is also has a closed case back. And usually I buy open case back watches, but this one was an exception because the dial execution on this is, frankly speaking, breathtaking. And I look forward to wearing this in good health. If you notice, it's also made with fitted with a plexiglass, so this harkens back to the old vintage days. So there's no sapphire crystal for this. And on the dial, there are actually 10 different hands for different functions, and that is a crazy number of hands. Therefore, they had to make the case a little bit thick. But the case is also thick because the movement itself is very, very complicated, and this was made in 1995 to 1999, so this was only made for 5 years and 500 examples. I've not seen many of these coming around, but I do believe they're still out there. So beautiful purchase. So that marks the end of my video. I hope you like it. This is just a sneak peek into what I'm collecting. I hope this collection grows, but it may grow in number, or it may actually dwindle in number through consolidation over the years for bigger pieces. But yeah, so this forms the part of my core collection. People also ask whether, are there any pieces that you don't sell? Obviously, there is one that I will never ever sell, which is my late grandfather's piece. But for every other piece, I wouldn't say that I wouldn't sell any, because you never know. You never know when, if a situation arises, you need to sell these pieces. Watch collecting is a financially intensive hobby, so I would never promise or swear that I wouldn't sell pieces, but I will enjoy these pieces as long as they are in my possession, and I hope to keep them for a long time. Thank you.